The Aftershock.
So every week here on Cryptocurrent Live on our Thursday show, we bring you the Aftershock, which is the biggest story that is sending shockwaves across the crypto world. This week, we've got a banger. We're talking about Crypto.com, who just scored the naming rights to Staples Center. That is where the LA Lakers play. That is where the LA Kings play. That is where the LA Clippers play. That is where the LA Sparks play. Arguably one of the sports meccas of our country. So, where to begin? Anywhere other than price seems a little bit silly, so let's get into the details. The agreement is a 20-year deal worth $700 million. How is this happening? Right? Like this is crypto entering the public zeitgeist in a brand new way, and I can't. Like this is really, really cool to me.
It's wild. And one thing, so I was thinking about this. This is a huge deal in sports until you think about sports like F1, because if you average this out, it's $35 million a year, give or take, for the naming rights. If you were to be the main name sponsor of a Formula One team, it's something around like 60 to $75 million a year. So although it's the biggest naming rights deal in history, what that actually means is it's the biggest naming rights deal single value on a piece of paper. Doesn't mean it's the highest per year or anything like that. Still an obscene amount of money. And I have a lot of very good opinions on why crypto.com made the right move, but we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah, we'll tackle that in a minute. There's a lot that we plan on expanding into in this story. The biggest piece of which actually has very little to do with Staples Center and a lot more to do with crypto marketing budgets. So we're going to get into more on this in a minute. But I will tell you that in my opinion, the reason why this is a really, really big deal is because that to me actually sounds like a steal. Why? Because in addition to just having the naming rights on the actual building, it also in the paperwork makes them the official crypto partner of the LA Lakers, the LA Clippers, the LA Kings, and the LA Sparks. So, I mean, that on its own, like you have all of these athletes that again are massive icons in the sport. LeBron James for the Lakers, Anthony Davis for the Lakers. You have Paul George for the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard when he's playing basketball for the Clippers. You have people playing hockey. I don't care about that sport. And then you have the LA Sparks, which again is the WNBA, and I respect that. But still, these are the biggest teams in sports, arguably, with massive histories. I mean, the Staples Center didn't change its naming rights since 1999. Okay.
Yeah.
It's literally been the Staples Center since 99. And here we are in 2021, and it's going to be taken over by a crypto company. So the deal is clearly in excess of what FTX paid for the Miami Heat arena. Granted, Miami is still a big market team. I wouldn't say it's LA. And at the same time, in that deal, it's for a shorter period. It's not for 20 years.
I think it's 10.
Yeah, I think it's half of it. Yeah.
And an interesting part of the partnership with all those teams is their official partner, right? I believe Webull is the official partner of the NBA's in terms of trading or something. So you see on all the jerseys the Webull logo, or on a lot of jerseys at least. Now you'll start seeing Crypto.com logo. But more
Yep.
interestingly is that it's either this season or next, but maybe towards the latter half of this NBA season, the LA Clippers are moving to their own stadium. So even though Crypto.com isn't naming that stadium, the LA Clippers will still be wearing jerseys that have the Crypto.com logo and advertising all over it. So that is the bigger steal to me, right? They basically got a 2-for-1 deal for a team that's about to leave.
And granted, for what I understand, it's actually until the Clippers leave the building. So that
Got it.
deal
Okay.
that deal executes when the Clippers leave. However, you still have it on one of the most recognizable jerseys in the world. right? And that's the
Absolutely.
Lakers. So that's really really big deal. But as much as like this is a huge deal for crypto, interesting on the other side of things, local fans are really against this. I mean, really against this. In the same way that like people refuse to refer to the Sears Tower as Willis Tower now that it's referred to as the Willis Tower,
It's true.
or Lady Bird Lake in Austin. They refuse to refer to it as Lady Bird Lake. They would rather refer to it as Town Lake. This type of stuff is a big deal, but I think that um, Los Angelinos, as I think they're referring to themselves these days, they need to just get their head out of their butt because like this is a huge deal. But Staples Center has been around for
I mean,
what? I mean,
almost 30 years.
yeah. Well, sorry, no, because the team formed in the '80s, but still, like they had a different team name for 10 years. Sorry, not team name, stadium name for 10 years. That's not a big deal. It just isn't. So they had Staples Center. Now it's Staples Center for 30 years or 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. That's how math works. That's not a long period of time. It
No.
just isn't. So the whole fervor that the community has behind it and Paul George's dumb commentary about how it'll always be Staples Center to me, like, bud, you're going to be in the NBA for another 3 years and then you're going to retire and nobody's going to really care about your opinion, right?
Yeah.
That's the truth. But the bigger piece is that this name change will actually be going official mid-season. So they're going to be officially Crypto.com Arena, official December 25th of this year.
And I
So,
believe they have a home Christmas game then. So that was probably part of the reason.
oh
But
yeah,
another interesting thing, right? And this was my kind of reading between the lines takeaway is I am sure that both sides of, the Lakers business team, crypto.com's business team realized, of course, everyone is still going to call it the Staples Center. That's all they're going to be thinking of it as. And they're all going to tweet about it and write articles about it. Because we've seen sports journalists all over the world write articles about it. People that aren't as invested in sports are talking about it. Either they love crypto and like it, they hate crypto and hate it. But at the end of the day, this is more free marketing for crypto.com. All they had to do, obviously, they shelled out a lot of money, but now you have essentially the entirety of American sports media focused on this one topic, giving crypto.com a ton of free press. And that to me is a massive win for them, right? Beyond FTX. Like it was a big deal when FTX Arena was named. I think it was about 300 million. But then you go and look at this, right? Like they spent a lot more money, basically are taking over, one of the two most well-known basketball franchises in history, right? Them and the Knicks, Celtics maybe, but those are pretty much the three biggest names in basketball in terms of history. They spent 700 million, you know, with you take inflation and all these other things into account. 20 years from now, this is going to be seen as one of the greatest marketing investments of all time.
yeah.
Right? It was genius on their part. And, I think if this were a, either or a versus between FTX and crypto.com, I think crypto.com, Steve, has really been winning the marketing battle right now. They've made all of the right moves in my mind. I've known about them for a while, but it seems like a lot of the mainstream media and even a lot of people in crypto really are only just really understanding what they're all about because they're making this huge investment in marketing.
Oh yeah, and like let's get it very very clear. Based on the moves that I've been seeing through the last few months, like let's just go back through the World Series, right? There has been no bigger winner than crypto.com. A lot of people thought that what FTX was doing was really impressive. But ever since we started seeing Jason Bourne on television talking about, fortune favors the brave or something like that, like everybody's talking about crypto.com. They're getting their IP in front of a lot of people by integrating into the NBA, into the MLB. Like, I mean, and they're going to keep going head to head with FTX. And guess what? Coinbase is still very much in the equation. So the amount of marketing spend, I couldn't find the number prior to this, but like we are finally seeing crypto relevant companies taking marketing extremely seriously. And I really appreciate that because not only is that going to lead us down the road towards mass adoption a lot faster, but we could really start seeing industries being born out of this that you would have never expected. Like this is going to be seen as like one of the biggest catalysts for development and innovation in our country, at the very least in the last like 50 years. By the time that this is all said and done, like it's going to inspire people to be crypto traders, get involved in the decentralized game, start developing things in the metaverse of their own. I mean, you you go around the NBA and go around sports, like you have Steph Curry owning, Bored Apes. He's also a sponsored athlete of FTX. You have Tom Brady as an ambassador of FTX. You have um, FTX being advertised in the World Series on the pitcher's mound with their crazy AR mapping tech that they developed, which still blows my mind. Um, but you will be seeing crypto.com a lot more frequently. And throughout this year, if you're watching the NBA, you're also seeing Coinbase quite frequently because they are the official partner of the NBA for as a crypto exchange. So
Yeah.
I am impressed. But what I will tell you, Chris, is that I think that this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And one
we are
thing I
going to
want to
see
note
so much
is,
more.
the it's good to see a lot of crypto companies take marketing seriously and invest, right? It's definitely a turn away from more traditional crypto, which is, to put it bluntly, that a lot of people in crypto rave about the financial freedom and how this democratizes everything, but they also all gatekeep the industry, right? You talk to most of these, I'll call them crypto tinfoil hats, the people buried very deep in these, quite frankly, ridiculous projects. And they're like, oh, no one else understands this. I'm a genius. I don't want these other people involved. That's not good. You don't grow an industry by keeping people out of it, especially when the entirety of your industry at the end of the day is an investment opportunity. But the
Yeah.
good news is that these crypto companies are taking it seriously now. And the better news is that they are good crypto companies. These are blue chip brands that aren't going to be able to rug pull and just disappear, because that is the last thing you want to see. More crypto marketing is not always necessarily a good thing, because if it's not a great project and they do a massive, massive marketing push, like we saw with Save the Kids in back in June, July, where they had a lot of influencers kind of pump their coin and then rug pulled, right? That is a bad look for crypto. It basically plays to all the FUD and fears that mainstream media, traditional investment opportunities have about crypto. But when you have massive blue chip exchanges like FTX, Crypto.com, and Coinbase, that is a good thing because they're well run. They are inevitably going to be regulated, but will stay inside the regulations and won't push back too much, right? More than they should. That is a good thing. It's a good look for crypto, and inevitably will make all of our investments worth that much more.
Oh yeah, and that was actually going to lead to my next question because, like, I think that the last piece that we need to take apart here before we sign off for this episode is having to do with like, okay, we see this happening. We've talked a little bit about like how this is going to work as a catalyst for the industry and within the world. But there are two things I want to know your take on, and I'll share mine if you're curious about it at the very end. But the first is this going to be a catalyst for price as we go into the end of this run? Because I think that at large, you can say this amount of money may impact that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it will be a catalyst for price to some degree, right? It's not going to be the be all end all. You won't see, another crazy bull run from this, but you will see certain coins pump. Some of those coins include crypto.com coin, which already, by the way, is up about 500% since June, because it was at like 10 cents a coin. It's the coin you use. The more you hold, the better staking rewards you get in crypto.com's app. But it also partnered with Coinbase, and you can now buy and trade Crow, CRO, that is the crypto.com coin, on Coinbase. And that is a huge piece as to why we saw about, uh, you know, basically a 20-cent pump from where it was a month ago. So you'll see it to some degree. That being said, not all of these announcements will affect every coin, and you can't expect them to.
Hmm.
And I want to leave you all with that.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that I kind of am left thinking about is like, the market sentiment chart where it's like, what leads to the true blow off top. The true blow off top is built in, by retail FOMO. They don't want to miss it at the very end. So if we're going to stick with this theory that the blow off top is coming at the end of this year, maybe like in December towards the end, which is my current theory, this lines up really well because this is going to put crypto in front of a lot more eyes right when crypto is looking for that retail FOMO to blow the top off. It could easily go into next year as well because the finals take place in February, something like that.
Oh no, NBA finals are next June.
Really, that far away?
Hmm.
Wild. Um,
Oh
oh
yeah,
yeah, that's because they had the condensed season last season. That's right.
yeah.
Um,
They're COVID kind of threw a wrench into everything.
yeah, I'm just being reminded that COVID happened. Crazy. Never would have thought. I forgot about that.
And
Uh,
interesting, you were talking about the end of this year, the end of December, as when that next blow off top comes, because a year ago, right, was a, basically all of crypto was as a whole about half of where it is now, and then January happened and everything exploded, and so I think it would be a good estimation or guess to assume that, wow, maybe a year later we see that again, especially after this major marketing push by massive blue chip exchanges.
yeah, and again, like there's a theory out there that right now is saying that this could in fact like we could get the blow off top for Bitcoin in closer to February. But guess what? There are just as many catalysts out there that would catalyze retail FOMO to go insane as there are here if there's a December push. Because guess who's going to be advertising at the Super Bowl? First weekend of February. I would be hard pressed to think that Coinbase, FTX, and Crypto.com are not very prepared to buy ad space for the Super Bowl next year. But the last thing that I think this is actually going to end up being a catalyst for is increasing the amount of attention and commentary that we end up having in the regulatory space as well. Um, it's something that again, like I like to think that we end up talking about regulatory a little bit more on our Tuesday shows, but we're constantly bringing up these little topics that are tied to crypto regulation because it's important. It's going to determine our freedom in the future to invest in and take part in the building out of Web3. So, in my opinion, I'm curious what you think. Do you think that we're going to end up seeing this whole massive marketing push because we're well into the billions of dollars now in terms of the overall number? Do you think that this is going to light a further fire under regulators to have a real discussion about this, considering it's coming to the public eye just this much more?
I don't think it will yet, right? I think especially in the United States right now, you have this massive $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that doesn't really go into effect for a while, but that is still going to be the primary focus of regulators and politicians in this country through January at the very least. And then after that, right, in February, you have the Super Bowl. And for those who don't know, basically every single person in America is either watching the Super Bowl or will hear about it. And so politicians are obviously included in that, especially when a very large chunk of them are from the southern United States, where traditionally football is a huge deal.
Oh
And
yeah.
so you're going to get a lot more eyes on it from politicians and regulators who probably, quite frankly, right now don't really think of it as something too serious, but it will put it back on the forefront right after this infrastructure bill is kind of put to bed.
Yeah, no question. Well, look, guys, that's going to do it for the Aftershock this week. If you enjoyed this segment, please let us know in the comments. And again, if this is your first time viewing us on YouTube, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, leave a comment. We want to get feedback from you in the best way that we can so that we can continue to improve this show for you.